Welcome to the dumbest smart guy podcast on the planet. This is the Central Unintelligence Podcast.
This is going to be a very interesting fucking episode. Lots of shit's happened in the last few days.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of more shit is going to happen in the upcoming days. But right now, we're going to just talk about what has happened over the last couple of days. But before we do that, if you want to hear our other podcasts, you go to GameRageMagazine.com. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. You can also follow us on Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Adam's at All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram.
Game Rage, based in Game Rage Pilled.
Indeed, and at Game Rage Magazine on the YouTube. So now that that's out of the way, the Middle East is fucked. It's potentially about to be fucked, and so
Wars have been fought for less.
Correct.
And this is assassinations. It's crazy shit.
yeah. So Israel. And I don't think this is coincidence. I was fucking about on some Twitter Spaces the last day or two, listening to some, trying to get to talk, because people, it fucking infuriates me that the moderators of these Twitter Spaces are fucking retarded. I don't understand why they let people fucking talk once they start going on about personal things, because you can clearly tell that the people who are trying to talk and speak about these things have they're a Muslim or they're Iranian.
There's
or
a
they're
personal
Jewish.
stake for them.
Yes. That is information that cannot be fucking trusted. It's got this major bias to it. And so all these people going on and spouting out about, oh, Iran's not going to do shit. Other people saying, oh, Iran's going to do all kinds of shit. Oh, Israel doesn't want a war. People, no one that I fucking listened to brought up any of the larger geopolitical aspects regarding this whole fucking thing. And it's very strange to me that people don't want to look at the broader picture. And we're gonna look at that, but just to get real quick, so last Friday, I think we talked about it on a previous episode, that there was a Hamas or Hezbollah rocket that fucking landed at the soccer field, killed a bunch of these people in the Druze community in Israel.
Not Jewish, though.
Right. They're like an offshoot, but they're very large. They're a very large part of the community, I guess. Not in terms of numbers, but in geographic area. This is a very influential part, I guess you could say, in Israel, where they have to do something because of this fucking attack. So it's very strange. And again, I don't believe in coincidences. I really fucking don't. It's very strange that this happens just as Netanyahu was here. He had just given this huge address to Congress. He had just met with the current president, Biden, and he met with both potential future presidents, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Now, we know Donald Trump's very pro-Israel. Kamala Harris, she kind of bent the knee a little bit. We talked about that. But everybody flew back. All the Israelis, every major person flew back to convene this war cabinet, and they said, we need to do something in response to this. And last times, they haven't really done a whole lot in response to a lot of things. I mean, yes, obviously they've invaded fucking Gaza and they have all that shit going on. But that's kind of part of their own country almost. So that kind of doesn't really count.
It's insular to them.
Right. So they've been doing attacks into Syria. They've been doing attacks into Lebanon, airstrikes and shit like that. They've been doing a lot of that. Some things into Yemen even, to fight Hezbollah and, other sections of Hamas, I guess, to try to get these people. So what they did first on, I think this was on Monday or Tuesday, they killed a major guy in Hezbollah.
In Beirut.
Yeah, they killed him in Beirut in Lebanon.
Name?
I'm looking that up right now because I forgot the guy's fucking name. Israeli airstrike. What was it in?
Beirut.
Beirut,
Lebanon.
It was a command. It was a military commander of Hezbollah, Fuad Shakur, and he also goes by Saeed Muhsan, I guess is how you say that. He was Hezbollah's most senior military commander and head of their strategic unit for Hezbollah. Okay, that's one of the organizations they're fucking about with. Yeah, go ahead.
Has it been officially declared that Israel is taking responsibility for both assassinations?
No, they took responsibility for this one immediately. The guy in Beirut, the Hezbollah commander. Okay. That seemed to me to be a generic, conventional military action.
That would make sense.
Right. This one, now with the second one, they killed Ismail Haniya. And he is basically the head of the political or the governmental wing of Hamas. He's the head of like their political bureau. Essentially, Hamas has two sides to it. There's the military, like the combatant or the I guess you could just say the military side, and then they have this political version of this terrorist organization, right? Or organization, whatever you want to say. So the fact that, Israel was sending a message by killing this guy, for sure. But the message that they were sending was, hey, this guy is one of the chief negotiators and trying to negotiate peace. He's also been seen as one of the more relatively pragmatic and like moderate people in Hamas. Like he is open to negotiation and trying to maybe end this, right?
I do want to interject because I was listening to the news about this particular gentleman, and I believe he was like one of the people that was at the forefront of trying to get ceasefires to happen during the early 2000s, during like the Bush era.
Yeah.
But nobody would meet him at the table either. So
right. That was during the our we don't negotiate with terrorists fucking phase, I guess. So yeah, we were not fucking about with any of these organizations. But regardless, this guy was one of the more moderate people that was trying to make some sort of ceasefire happen, right? To end this conflict in a peaceful kind of ish manner, right? And by killing this guy, they send a very clear message that, well, we just killed the negotiator, so we're not fucking interested in negotiations, right? Allegedly. Now, like I said, Israel's not taking responsibility for this. However, it's still not 100% clear because we're only being given Iranian, I guess, confirmation of what happened. And essentially what happened is this guy was in Iran for the inauguration of their new president, right? Because the last president died in the helicopter crash. Okay. So he was there for the new inauguration of this new president, and he was staying in an apartment building that was like very close to the presidential compound or whatever. It was like right next door. And he was staying in like an apartment building. And they only got his fucking room. There's been no other reports of anyone else dying. Him and his bodyguard. They're the only two motherfuckers that died.
Precision.
So the initial reports from Iran, and they haven't refuted this or said any different, but they've said essentially that this was something that was launched from an aircraft. They don't know if it's a missile, if it was like some kind of a drone that had a fucking missile on. Who the fuck knows what it was?
All right. It would make sense if it was a drone. A missile, I think, would be too excessive.
Yeah, it would have to be something with a smaller payload.
Yeah.
To just
for one person.
Right, to just blow up this fucking room and that's it. And so when you look at the facts, Israel has the technology to do this. They have the technological. Now, I can't tell you what they clearly have used something that is new and has not been used before, because these type of drone strikes or strikes don't happen in this manner. They essentially, you just level a building. Like I've never seen anything that's as precision as this. Like you're blowing up half the fucking house. If you're blowing up some shit, you're not just able to blow up like one fucking room and leave the building intact, basically. If you're doing something like that.
I would argue against that because I've seen videos of like the Ukraine and Russia conflict where there's drones that drop like grenades in foxholes.
Right, yeah. But those drones have a very limited range. Those drones are not, like, you got to be within like a few, 3-4 miles of it, right? This was deep into the heart of Iran. This was in Tehran, the capital of fucking Iran, okay? So they're saying that this was launched from an aircraft outside of Iranian airspace. So that indicates several hundred, if not close to, I don't know what the distance is where they could have went from outside of Iranian airspace, but I mean several hundred miles to say the least. This is some sort of undetected, by the way. They had no fucking idea about this until it blew up. So this is some sort of new thing that we haven't necessarily seen yet before. And if that's the case, that leads me to believe that in the Middle East, there's only one fucking country that has the ability to have that, and that's fucking Israel. Us and Israel are probably the only two countries in the world. They probably got it from us, or we helped develop whatever this was with them. Who knows? Maybe we'll probably never fucking know exactly what the circumstances are, but Israel has essentially denied that they were involved with this at all. Now, the message of killing this guy specifically is kind of like a low rent. It's lowbrow. It doesn't really even fucking matter, honestly, at this point. The message of killing this specific guy, the message that Israel was trying to send to Iran was that, hey, guess what? You're not safe anywhere. We can get you in your own fucking capital, and we can just kill one of you. We don't have to kill a whole building. We can just kill who we want to kill. So keep fucking around, maybe you'll find out. That's the message that they're sending by killing this guy in Iran, because they could have killed him anywhere. He was staying in Qatar before this.
Yeah, it feels, I mean, for me, number one objective or what's being said is peace is not on the table at all. If there was ever a chance.
Right.
Now there's absolutely no chance. Because I think this would definitely enrage quite a bit of people to have this situation happen. But then again, I'd be curious to find out what people within Hamas and Hezbollah, like how they feel about the situation, because obviously they themselves don't want to negotiate with Israel altogether, right?
Right.
Or you would imagine that they are in a no negotiation situation anyways, so this guy's death maybe didn't mean all that much, but it's an excuse to say, rather to point the finger at Israel, at the very least.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, there is the possibility that this could have been some kind of an inside job by Iran because they need to fucking do some shit with Israel. Very possible.
I think that would be the other conclusion that somebody can come to, is maybe it was an inside job. It was a low stakes thing to have somebody within Hamas to do it just to escalate the situation so that you pit or put Israel basically against everybody with this small but significant death.
Right, and one of the things that I was bringing up in these Twitter spaces was the overarching geopolitical strategy of why this is fucking happening. And everybody's saying all this shit. Oh, is it going to lead to World War III? Blah blah blah. World War III has already begun, and I've talked about this before, where just like World War I was World War II was vastly different from World War I, right? World War I was all trench warfare and like chemical warfare. World War II was mechanized, airborne, naval. There were it was so different from World War I, and that was only separated by a span of 20 years.
Robust.
It's been 80 fucking years since World War II happened. World War III is going to look nothing like World War II. So people looking for these cues of countries invading countries, my whole thought process is that World War III is going to essentially be a war of proxy wars and cyber warfare until it leads to the eventual conflict between the two big powers in the room. And right now, the United States is the number one fucking power on the planet. China and BRICS are trying to take that, right? So you've got Israel, you got the Middle East, which is this fucking battleground that honestly, I don't think either side gives two shits about if it's level. They don't give a fuck. Honestly, leveling the fucking Middle East actually really helps out China or BRICS. because Venezuela's in BRICS, and they have the largest oil reserves on the planet, the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, right? So all you'd be doing is helping BRICS by ensuring that anyone who doesn't want to buy oil from America has to come through BRICS. Like, because, well, we locked it up. We're the only motherfuckers who have a large supply of it. So I don't think China gives a shit what happens to the Middle East. And Iran is essentially the proxy of BRICS or China. And Israel is obviously the proxy of the United States. So we've got this battle going on a global scale of someone trying to become the new world power, the new world hegemon. That's what BRICS is trying to do. That's what we're seeing start to play out here. It started, to me, I think in the history books when we go back and look, I think that they will determine that the invasion of Ukraine by Russia will be the true beginning of World War III. Like, that will be the thing that set it off. Because that singular act has set off all of these other things to lead up to today.
That's possible.
All these escalations, that's kind of what I think. That's my opinion on the matter. Now, with this issue specifically, Iran has two options. They have three. They can kind of do a half-ass little fucking attack like they did the last time with those 300 missiles and fucking it basically hit like four missiles fucking made contact. That was for the killing of one of their guys in, I think, Syria. This is a different situation because it's not about who was killed. It's about how they did it. It's about the fact that they did it in the capital of the country. This would be like when Netanyahu was here, if Iran or if Hamas fucking assassinated Netanyahu in DC, right, with a fucking airstrike. That's the equivalent of this guy getting killed in Iran. Yeah. Oh, you want me to pause it? All right. Anyways, so basically, what the fuck was I on about? I lost my fucking train of thought completely. Oh, Iran. The options that they have, right? You have the three options. You can do some bullshit like you did the last time, which, to me, that's going to just project weakness. The fact that Israel was able to, or someone was able to get into your capital city and kill a dude, that's fucking crazy. Like, that is a extreme problem that you have. And if you're not going to do shit about it, now you're just kind of saying, well, can't do shit about this. They do not, I don't think they can afford to project anything other than ultimate strength, I guess you could say. And I don't know what their response is going to be, but their third option is to do nothing. They can do nothing and look like a bitch. That's basically the three options that they have. I don't know which one they're going to choose.
I think there's a fourth option.
What's the fourth option?
The fourth option is missile strikes and also simultaneously doing nothing, if that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of like the middle option. It's kind of doing the same shit they did last time, which was basically like doing nothing. Because, yeah, you launched 300 missiles, but 4 of them fucking hit their targets, and you did it in a way that was like... they knew it was coming. They even told, essentially, the United States through diplomatic channels that they were going to do this attack. They told us in advance, like a day in advance, that this was going to happen. So, I
also think if we are to assume your hypothesis or theory that any countries that are in favor or are in favor of the plight of Iran, they're going to speak out. And if it is BRICS, then yeah, that pretty much confirms.
Oh yeah, they've already said that. I mean, Putin decried the attack. Xi decried the attack. All the major players in BRICS have said, "Oh, this is a horrible breach of the sovereignty of a nation."
Even India?
I don't know about India.
Because India is within BRICS, right? India's, or is it Iran that's in is it Iran or India?
Well, Iran is in fucking is in BRICS.
But they're the I in BRICS.
No, I think
is that India?
India is the I. So okay. India, I haven't heard anything out of India. I haven't seen anything specific from India, but also India's kind of friends with us a little bit. So it's like
they're
and so like they're kind of like you're betraying us, but not like, you know what I'm saying. Also Turkey. This is the other wild card in this whole thing. Turkey.
They're not going to do shit.
Okay, Turkey's running their mouth. They've already said, prior to this happening, Turkey said earlier in the week, they said, if Israel invades Lebanon, because that was the expected response, was that Israel was going to go on the ground into Lebanon and start fucking shit up. Erdogan said, if Israel goes into Lebanon, we will also go into Lebanon and fight Israel directly, and then we're going to enter Gaza and maintain peace. That's what he said. Now, Israel's obviously not going to take that kindly, so that's just going to cause problems. Another complication in this whole fucking thing is Turkey is a NATO member. They're in fucking NATO. So what happens if Israel decides to attack Turkey because they fucking came in and did some shit to them? So Israel says, fuck you. If Turkey declares Article 5, well, all the fucking NATO countries have to help defend Turkey. Well, that puts us directly at odds that would put us directly at odds with Israel by treaty, by the NATO treaty. And that's a very sketchy situation. It's very weird. And I think we should just kick Turkey the fuck out. Like, that's, I don't know what we've been waiting for.
I don't even think they wanted them in the European Union either. So it's like,
well, the only reason why, again, that Turkey was allowed ascension into NATO, or accession, or whatever the fuck it's called, was because of the fight of communism. Like, we were trying to stop communism. That's how we got buddy with all these Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
Because the communists were trying to go in there and take some shit over. So we just were like, hey, you guys, that's why every Middle Eastern country, or most of them, all have U.S. military hardware. If you look at Turkey, Turkey has a shit ton of modern United States military equipment. Now, granted, they don't have F-22s or any of that shit like that, or F-35s, but they have F-16s. They have advanced aircraft. They have things of that nature. So who knows how the fuck this is going to go down if Turkey decides to get involved. But I have seen, like I said, all of these other countries decrying it. Also, Israel did state through all the back channels to Iran and Lebanon that they are willing to go to full-scale war. They said this today, and through these back channels, they said, hey, we're willing to fucking go all the way with this. So if you do anything that causes significant damage or casualties in Israel, then that's it, bitch. Like, we're going full-scale fucking warfare. And so, God damn it, this fucking thing. All right. So I don't know what exactly that. They're sending the message, don't fuck with us now. We just did this, don't fuck with us. Also, the acting foreign minister of Iran, Ali Bagheri, he supposedly delivered some message to Qatar saying any Arab nation that provides its airspace to the Zionist entity, Israel, to launch strikes against Iran will become a legitimate target for attack. So Iran is now saying, if you fucking help these guys, we're coming after you next. So now the lines are being drawn. The battle lines of Israel or the Middle East are being drawn. And I brought this point up because somebody was asking about why would the Middle East, or why would Israel want to do all this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, one thing that people are forgetting to incorporate into their analysis with this is basically for the last, I guess since like the 60s, so what, for the last, I don't know, 50 years or 70 years, the last like 60 some odd years, the Israelis have been the only country in the Middle East that have nuclear weapons. They're the only singular country to possess and maintain nuclear weapons. And the reason they have that is because we gave it to them, right? We fucking helped them do that. Iran this year has been, now there's all this talk that Iran has the ability to make nuclear weapons, right? So if the one trump card that Israel has over all its enemies is, if you try to fucking overrun us, we'll just drop nukes. We don't give a shit. If that trump card is now being essentially negated because, hey, we got those too, bitch. So what you gonna do about it? Israel needs to destroy Iran. That's what's happening here. They cannot afford to have another Middle Eastern country with access to nuclear weapons, which is why I think this is being all used to be the excuse to, like, let's get fucking some shit going with Iran. And here's the other thing. If you obviously, this is a conspiracy, I think, but if you want to do this and you need the help of America, right, which they do, they need our help to fucking go against Iran. They're not going to be able to do it alone. If you want our help, of course, obviously, we're going to give it to them. But we are right now in a political election phase, and people are not necessarily all in favor of getting into another war at this point. So the guy who's the current president is not running for re-election. His vice president doesn't get to make the decision as to whether or not we do this. So if you do this now, before he leaves office, whoever the next president is, whether it's Harris or whether it's Trump, it doesn't matter. We're already in something. You've now protected that person from being the one that made the decision. So if it turns out to be an unpopular decision come November to help Israel, if this turns into something in the next, 4 weeks or whatever, and we have to get involved, the decision to do that is not on either of these candidates. They have no factor in the decision-making process for that. It's all on Biden.
That's not true, though, because then that decision could be made first post-election.
It could be, but because the timeline has now been moved up because of these other attacks that have happened, like that soccer, 12 people died. Yeah, it was kids and that's fucked up, or 20-something people died, right? It's kids and it's fucked up. But in the grand scheme of things, you don't need to start an entire war because of that. No one would normally do that, right? That's irrational. But you need an excuse. You can't waste the good crisis. This singular attack is a great crisis for Israel to get their people banging the war drums. I mean, look at this thing we're watching right now in fucking Iran, this guy's funeral. They are banging the war drums right now in Iran. They're like all in. Their people right now are all fucking in to go and fucking attack the Zionist enemy, right? Is what they're saying. And what's funny is they issued, all these people were losing their shit about, they're going to attack them sometime tomorrow. Well, it would be right now between 6 a.m. and noon Iranian time, because they put this NOTAM up, which a NOTAM is a notice to airmen. It's essentially like a flight restriction that's put in place. So they put this flight restriction. When you read it, it's over fucking Tehran in the 2 to 4 kilometer radius of where this funeral is being held. And I'm like, yeah, because the Ayatollah is going to come speak at this, right? So you want to be able to just say, hey, anything that comes in here, we're shooting it the fuck down. Because this is going to be the most televised recent event in Iranian history. What a great move for your enemy to do is to kill the guy who's the religious leader in charge of your country live on your television with some sort of airstrike or whatever, right?
Yeah, to have everybody in one pocket, it's dangerous.
Oh, it is. And that's why they put that up. And I was trying to explain it to people, and people are like fucking, you don't fucking know what you're talking about. And I'm like, watch, you'll see tomorrow. Like, you can see it right now. You can read what it says. Like, you can tell me I'm wrong, but you clearly just don't understand how to read, probably, is what it looks like. But it's looking at the totality of the situation and trying to take in all the facts. No one can predict what's going to happen. And that's the thing. This is not a prediction of what's to come.
You know what's funny is that it's almost like an inversion. I mean, for our side, what happened in the 1980s with Ukraine de-escalating and basically giving all their arms to Russia so that things wouldn't propel to basically what happened now.
Yeah.
Now we're getting the inverse of that. If we go with what you're saying, that Iran is, I know they had nuclear facilities, but they never actually had nuclear weapons. They had the manufacturing power to do it, or the capability. But it is funny. It's like the inverse. It's not on our side. It's on their side that these people are developing nuclear weapons, and Israel is trying to prevent another power arising to have a nuclear deterrence against Israel.
Yeah, and this, like I said, I don't think the U.S. or China gives a shit about what happens in the Middle East. The Middle East is a sacrificable pawn in this global game of money, I guess, or global power, the global Game of Thrones, right? We're witnessing it live before us. the Middle East is sacrifice that can be made and is willing to be made by both sides. Because if Iran does have nuclear weapons, and Israel does have them, because this capability from Iran has only been over the last year or two, and there's reports because they've kicked out the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors. They kicked them the fuck out last year.
That must have been post, because that was a whole big pivotal moment within Obama's bids as president. Was he was trying to create a nuclear deal with Iran that they wouldn't create nuclear weapons, and they got it done.
Yeah,
and then post his presidency, or maybe into Trump's, that deal was off the table, and then they started over again.
Well, and then they started a new deal, and Iran's tactic of what they have done, which honestly is genius, because they know we're going to do what we can to protect Israel from being the one that has the nuclear weapons, right? The only one. We only want them to be the only one that has them. So we were just paying them shit tons of money to basically not make nuclear weapons. And what they were doing, in my opinion, was taking that money and using it to make nuclear fucking weapons, or the ability to make nuclear weapons.
Grifting.
And that's essentially what they did. They just grifted the fuck out of us, and we fell for it. And here we are now, where potentially some estimates are that Iran currently is likely in possession of 2 to 4 nuclear weapons that are functional, because of the time it's been since the International Atomic Energy Agency was expelled, and with what we knew about their nuclear program at the time to where it is now. That's estimates that are being made. Who knows if they're that accurate or not? I mean, who knows? It could be they could have 0. Maybe they fucking lost some shit. Maybe they fucked up and they screwed something up. Or hell, maybe it's the inverse and they did something and they're like, oh shit, we found this easier way to do it. Or the Russians told them, or somebody told them, and they're like, oh cool, now we can make fucking nuclear weapons even faster. Maybe they have 20. Who the fuck knows? No one knows. But Iran has the choice to make now as to what the fuck they're going to do to this. And I'm very curious to see what their response is going to be. They already said there's going to be what they are calling a massive, unprecedented retaliation against Israel. Don't know what that means. That could mean a bevy of things. But they're already drawing the line saying, like I said, anybody who helps Israel is getting fucked next. So it's going to be, we have also, I've noticed I've been watching the naval fleet trackers, and all of the fucking people that are reporting on this are basically saying every military asset that's in the Mediterranean and in that central command theater is now headed towards the Gulf of Oman, towards fucking the Mediterranean Sea, and they are essentially going to have Iran on both fucking sides with naval assets. And that could potentially be aircraft carriers, or it is for sure aircraft carriers with long strike capability. That's destroyers and cruisers with fucking long range ballistic missiles. There's plenty of shit that if Iran decides to go after Israel and Israel sends some more shit and claps back again, we're going to fucking just launch all our shit and see what happens. And again, no one gives a shit if the Middle East gets destroyed in the long run. It's no longer necessary as a thing, because, well, guess what? We can get oil from ourselves.
Maybe Venezuela, if we said if we start an insurrectionist group.
Well, I mean, supposedly they won the election, and Maduro is just clinging to power. And I have seen pictures. I don't know if they're for real recent, but there are Russian Wagner guys that are protecting fucking Maduro.
Oh man, but there's just as many people. There's videos of people in the streets being barricaded out from. He was in some Pueblo area and he was talking from some building or whatever, but there was a perimeter around that area, and the protesters were I guess combating against the security or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
Bodyguards or.
I mean, I have to believe that he is not anywhere that anyone's going to find him now. Currently, he's gone. He's in the wind because the country is either going to burn, or what I imagine is going to happen is they're going to do just like they did with Belarus. And when Lukashenko rigged the election and the people rioted, what did they do? They turned off the internet, and evidently people just went home and fucking it fizzled out. And that's what they're going to do in Venezuela. It's going to be the same fucking shit.
And we'll see. Well,
I mean, they've already called for the arrest. Maduro's put out arrest warrants for both of the opposition leaders. saying that they are planning to attack the hydroelectric dam that provides 80% of the power for Venezuela, that the opposition is going to destroy that. With what? Who the fuck knows? But that's what they're saying they're going to arrest them for. That's what the warrants say, is that, the lady and then the dude who is the actual candidate are the ones that fucking are going to do, they're going to do this. They're going to blow up this hydroelectric dam. Oh, okay. Fucking idiots.
Well, we'll hold off
that's
on
a whole
that.
other, that'll probably be a whole episode on its own. But specifically with Iran, we're going to see here, they said they were going to wait to do anything until after the funeral was done. I thought the funeral wasn't going to take place until Friday, and it's happening now.
They want to, there's a sense of urgency.
There is, because they did originally say that they were doing 3 days of mourning, and on the third day, on Friday, that's Friday morning would be his funeral. Well, it's Thursday morning there, and they're already doing it. So it's like, oh shit. This kind of tells me they're serious, and they want to do something now. Could just be a bluff to throw everybody off. Who the fuck knows? We will see. Maybe tomorrow night we will have another episode for you talking about the massive retaliation that happened, because they are, I think, 11 hours ahead of us.
So a half a day?
So they're like a half a day ahead of us right now. So we will see
something.
Likely by tomorrow our time, or August 1st afternoon our time, is when it's going to be nighttime there in the Middle East. If they're going to do an attack, it's likely going to be at night. So we'll see. But anyways, that's the current situation that's happening. I don't claim to know what's going on or have any inside information. These are just my observations from looking at things historically and looking at things that are currently happening in a global kind of macro lens to maybe explain why these things are happening on the micro level. And if you think I'm wrong and I'm an idiot, cool. Like, you're entitled to your opinion, just like I'm entitled to mine. So, that's it. You got anything else to add for this?
Nope.
All right, cool. Well, anyways, this will be the end of this episode. If you want to follow us, you go to GameRageMagazine.com, Instagram and TikTok at GameRageMagazine, YouTube at GameRageMagazine, Twitter/X at GameRageMag. All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram if you want to follow Adam. If you like music, go listen to the All Gas No Trash podcast. That'll be the end of it for us. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope we don't have to do another one of these tomorrow, because then that means some shit went down. But anyways, fuck it. Content's content. I'll keep doing it. We'll keep talking about shit that's happening. It's easy. This is like autopilot almost. So anyways, all right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
That was the latest episode of the Central Unintelligence Podcast. Don't forget, subscribe and like on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. We're also on Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Also our website, www.GameRageMagazine.com.